we've been there. So sometimes you just got to eat, and you may have to take a job that you don't necessarily want, but really just trying to make sure that you're not, even early on in those stages, getting in a habit of taking on jobs like that, because that then becomes your reputation and the type of jobs you take on. Are you wrapping cars for 12 hours a day, every day? Is your social life non-existent? Are you barely making enough money to get by, if that? Are you drained, burned out, wondering how long you can keep this up? Well, so are we. My name is Andrew Banks.
And I'm Tanor Banks. And this is the WrapOps Podcast, where we don't really care about which car is the coolest one in the industry to wrap or the trendiest film on the market. This is a podcast about building a wrap business that actually works for you. We're here to help you dial in the business side of your business and your wrap shop, because you deserve a break and we're going to help you do just that. Welcome to the second ever episode of the WrapOps Podcast, and we have a really good one planned for you today. And we're going to start off with asking you a couple of questions and just kind of think about it and let us know if it sounds like you. So are you struggling to make sales, and more specifically struggling to make those lifelong customers and those repeat customers? Are you constantly arguing potential clients over price? Are you constantly arguing those potential clients over the final product? A lot of you have way too high of expectations for what a wrap is. Maybe that argument keeps coming up. Are there consistent concerns with the wrap in regards to quality? Say maybe you put the wrap on and then 30 days later, a month later, a year later, customers always coming back and complaining to you. Do you have people asking you for refunds? Does it just feel like you're constantly cleaning up messes and you can't get ahead? Well, today's episode, we're going to address the 3 quick ways to get out of this never-ending cycle of frustration and anxiety, and how to really kind of put your best foot forward and start running a business that doesn't run you. So to kick it off, go ahead, Andrew. What is our number one first tip of how to get out of that vicious cycle?
Number one is going to be just assessing your product. So if you're listening to this, you probably own a wrap shop, and your main product is the wrap. So that's your deliverable to the customer. Step one's got to start with the product. If your product sucks, nothing else matters.
And how can someone just essentially assess if their wraps are quality or not?
You ever go to a car show, you're going to beeline to all the cars that are wrapped, because that's what we do. And everything that you would essentially talk crap about is what you're going to assess. Is your wrap peeling? Is it bubbling? Are your seams just bad? Do you cut on the car? All of those things are going to be things that you're assessing. If you do commercial work, are your words straight? Are your matchups on a commercial wrap, do they hit, or are they way off?
Yeah, I think another big one too is a patch. So we always joke in our shop that there is no such thing as a patch. You can do an underlay that's strategic, but if there is like a square piece of vinyl just slapped on top, that is a patch.
Yep.
And that is your biggest sign that that's a pull. There is no patches. So what do you think is the big reason why you don't want those items to occur? Is it just because customers are picky, or what's really the main reason why you don't want bubbles, fingers, patches, backwards seams, things like that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you're just setting a standard. So you're trying to make your deliverable consistent. So it's the whole reason that McDonald's works. You're not expecting a Ruth's Chris steak or something crazy, but you are expecting the same consistent, cheap burger every single time. And then that goes all the way up to, let's go to the other end of the fast food spectrum, Chick-fil-A. You're expecting a little bit of a higher quality, but you're expecting the same chicken sandwich every single time you order it. So that's essentially what you have to do to your wrap shop. You have to figure out what your standard is. So,
however, to argue you a little bit there, the thing that we're talking about is setting your standard. And McDonald's, typically you get a Big Mac, in California, and you'll get a very similar Big Mac in Ohio, and kind of same with Chick-fil-A. So I don't think it's more of, in this exact topic, an expectations thing, as much as it is, what is your shop's standard? So for
Yeah.
us specifically in our quality check, we actually started assigning measurements to things that can be off. So, like for example, when we have our panels that are overlapping, if the text is off by an eighth of an inch, that's a redo. And because it started turning into this gray area of like, is this enough to pull it or should I keep it? And so we started coming up with these thresholds of like, if your panel has more than two fingers on it for a commercial job, that's a pull. And obviously, it's hard to assign numbers to absolutely
Yeah.
everything, but I think setting your quality standard and having your team, or even if it's just you, following that standard very strictly, that will, kind of help decide, is this a quality wrap or not?
Yeah.
So,
Consistency is what you're going for. So,
exactly, which I think the McDonald's and the Chick-fil-A example better represented. But your other point we'll get to
yeah.
a
Yeah.
little bit later on. And in that also is, what are the materials that you're using as well? So, not to bring up one of the largest arguments I feel like in our industry, but are you using a high quality film? What is a high quality film? So, speaking from our own experiences here, we've tried the low
The
quality
low quality
films.
films. Yeah.
And we even tried doing we'll just have the customer sign their life away. And it exploded in our face so many times that we just quit doing it. Do you
Yeah.
happen to remember I guess you would say a horror story of using one of those films?
Yeah. So it's typically the calendared films that are trying to act like wrap films. And you just have the issues that you're going to have with using calendared film, which is it's going to shrink back. It's not going to last nearly as long. When you go to remove it, it could do paint damage. So, yeah, no, we have a few of those stories.
Yeah. And the biggest to us was the install time doubled or tripled,
Yeah.
which
So,
wasn't accounted for in the pricing because the customer typically knows it's like a cheaper film.
mhm,
So it's kind of hard to be like, I'm going to double your price because the install takes twice as long.
yeah.
And also, you get half or less of the lifespan. It's just weird. So typically, when I say all those things, the customer gets talked out of it anyway. But that falls on you. It's like if you were to build a house and you didn't use, I don't know, quality lumber, you used, this crummy
Yeah.
lumber, and a year later the house starts falling apart. The customer doesn't really care at the end of
Yeah.
the day because they trusted you as the expert. You, as the expert, should say, yes, I would wrap my own car in
Mhm.
this, and keep it for multiple years. Of course, there are those customers that only want their car wrapped for 1 year and then they're going to change it. And if that's what they're going to, then maybe that's a good fit. But definitely understanding the vinyls that you're working with and being able to confidently discuss that with customers of longevity, color fading, all of those things, especially with where you live too.
Yeah.
Because if you're in
Yeah.
like Arizona, I think Texas,
Mhm.
those areas, you should have those shorter lifespans. So that's also a factor as well.
Yeah, and it hurts your reputation if you don't manage that. So,
Yeah. And I have found that clients like when you're honest with them and say, like, I really appreciate you picking out these three colors, but our shop will not offer any of those three. And that's kind of similar to when you go to a nice restaurant. If you ever look at the bottom of the menu, there's sometimes a little blurb that
Mhm.
says, like, if you ask for too many deviations, we have the right to refuse it if it's getting too far away from our product. And I like to think of a wrap shop in that similar vein of when you start to get us too far out of our comfort zone of the products we know and understand and our team is trained on, you're just kind of asking for us to fail. And I'm not going to set my team up for failure. So that's our quick speech on using a high quality film,
yeah.
and spending the money on that as well. So it might save you, $400 on the front end, but I promise you in the amount of labor and time, it doesn't really
Yeah.
save you
And
that
my
much.
biggest pain point with it was really just that reputation. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how many pages of legalities you make them sign on a material that we know for sure isn't going to meet our standard and it's going to do damage to the paint and, this, that, and the other, that when they go out to the car show or their friend asks them who wrapped their car and it sees a just underperforming product,
It's your name all over it.
it's our name. They don't
And it's not
say,
like you have
"Oh, but I signed 3 pages of legal documents,"
yeah,
or
it's not
someone
like that
sees it in a
disclaimer is
parking lot.
attached
Right.
to it. Like
Right.
they go to the car show and they park and they walk away.
Mhm.
So it's not like you're there to explain, oh, they signed away on
Yeah.
the red line. And, so you have to think about that, especially if you're a shop like us that puts a little logo on every single
Yeah.
car that you do.
Yeah.
So,
And that said, because I know that our listenership is going to vary greatly from like size of shop. We've been there. So sometimes you just got to eat, and you may have to take a job that you don't necessarily want, but really just trying to make sure that you're not, even early on in those stages, getting in a habit of taking on jobs like that, because that then becomes your reputation and the type of jobs you take on. So something
Yeah.
to consider, because we've definitely taken on some jobs in the past that probably shouldn't have, probably didn't really meet our standard. And then we always regret it at the end, even though we were just trying to snag the job because, we were trying to get a paycheck, but really it just turned into, a potential ding in a reputation, and you're pulling all your hair out because it takes 3 times as long, and, you're cussing into the abyss. So,
yeah, another factor to consider that goes hand in hand with your wrap that I don't think a lot of people talk about enough is you are working on someone's vehicle. So, are you damaging it in the process? So, if you get that car and all of the door handles are snug and then you wrap it, take the door handles off, put the door handles back on, and all of those door handles are loose, that is a problem. You should be addressing that until it is fixed. Are you cutting on the paint, scratching the paint? Are you doing a removal and the paint starts peeling? That's a problem. Are you burning the clear coat, trying to get emblems off? So you also have to keep in mind it is a vehicle and you cannot damage it. And what is your process if you do? So that, in my opinion, goes hand in hand with how good of an installer are you?
yeah.
So other things to look for. So you really just have to look inward and be able to assess yourself. And if you can't look inward, I don't know, maybe if you have a detailed buddy, have them walk around the car and say, show me what you see. What do you think? Does something look wrong? It's always better if it's someone who knows how to wrap.
Yeah.
Preferably, I notice people who don't wrap don't notice as much, but maybe a detailer will notice everything if you have a detailer friend.
Yeah. And I would say, even from the installer standpoint, like, you touch every square inch. If you don't know about that finger or bubble or
Sure.
imperfection, like,
And I think a big
get
argument
get
there is
better.
like
I don't
you
know.
spent, 5 hours on something and you're like, oh, I don't want to pull it.
Yeah.
But that's where you get better as an
Yep.
installer, unfortunately, is the times that you pull it. So then you'll learn to slow down with your trims and trim less and all of those things. So the big takeaway there is actually self-assess your work and stop trying to explain to your client that that's the normal. Don't tell them to stand 10, 15 feet back. We hear that all the time. We have angry customers come in and they're like, well, that shop told me to stand 20 feet back. And if I can't see it, it's fine. And
Yeah.
maybe that's your policy and maybe it's worked for you. I have found it makes people angry. And that's the last thing that you want is for people to be angry, because all they're going to do is leave your shop and go to someone else's
Yeah.
who actually takes care of them and goes, you're right, that is an issue. We should rewrap it. They should have done this.
Yeah.
Whatever the issue
And
may be.
I think that also comes down to, what is it? McDonald's is a very different expectation than Chick-fil-A. So
Yeah.
figure out which one you are. So
Exactly. So then number 2 of how to get out of this vicious cycle after you have assessed your own wrapping skills and determined, yes, I'm doing great, or no, I'm not doing great and I need to get better. Number 2 would be to perfect your product. So how do you get better? There's always room for improvement. I don't think I know any installer that wraps a whole car and says, yes, every single thing on here is absolutely perfect. There's nowhere I could have improved. So figuring out how to perfect that is really your second thing. Perfect the product, and then the rest of it will fall into place.
Yeah, you have to start with your product. Nothing else matters if what you actually deliver is subpar.
Yeah, exactly. And same thing that we talked about earlier, that includes the hardware being put back together correctly. That includes the pre and post inspection that comes with it, because if you this is my favorite thing. Whenever someone on our team, they're like, I don't know if this was broken before or after because I didn't document it. And it's like, well, now we're fixing it.
Yep.
So that's a big thing our shop does is if we didn't document that it wasn't damaged before, it's on us to fix.
Hmm.
Because how am I supposed to go up to the customer and say, this was broken, but I think it maybe was broken before?
Right.
So that's really uncomfortable. And we try to do really thorough inspections because of that. But again, as mentioned earlier, you need to develop your own scale of what is acceptable and what isn't. And also, you need to figure out how you can keep learning in the industry. And do you have any advice on what you would recommend if someone wants to improve their wrapping, maybe some things you've done to improve and help others that you've trained? Because you've trained a lot of people on how to wrap at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, absolutely. So you don't get better, overnight. So the biggest thing is a lot of it is like mental frameworks and mindset to start with. So I'm a big believer in the 1% better kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Even like I literally went through this with a team member today who is like learning how to wrap trailers. Is I asked them to take a half a second pause in between each panel to just self-assess what can I get 1% better at, and just carrying that mentality, that's a compounding effect. So if you carry that mentality on every single panel for years, you're going to end up being a very good installer just by the nature of stopping to think, how could I have done that better?
Hmm.
Outside of that, there's a big thing I'd like to push is test pieces. So we save all of the scrap from like every job, and it just essentially sits in a box in a corner. A little more organized than that, but just to keep your scrap. And anytime we go to look at a piece or a panel that we are about to wrap, I like to go through like a mental check of just how am I going to handle that corner? How am I going to get it to feed into that recess? Pretty much anything that isn't just a flat box
Yeah.
truck
And
that's
it
like
doesn't
very
have to be a
basic.
full panel. It
Yeah.
can be just that raised object,
Yeah.
or you could do full panel if
Yeah.
you wanted to. But just so you know, it could be a little 12
Mhm.
inch by 12 inch square of a light you've never done before or
Exactly.
something to see how it falls in.
Grabbing a test piece is huge because it's a test piece. So like you can mess up your relief cut, you can overstretch on accident, you can put a wrinkle in it and realize that method isn't going to work
Mhm.
because it's a test piece, and you can go faster. And you could do multiple test pieces. So even though you're wrapping that fender one time for the final product to the customer, with practice pieces, you can wrap certain areas 6 times until you're like, okay, I understand it. I've nailed it. Let's go to the final. And again, it's a compounding effect. So do that every time that you are halfway questioning how you're going to handle something. You're going to get very good very quick. And then those two techniques are going to be kind of once the training wheels are off and you're going, if you're really early on, and really even into the advanced. But if you need someone to like teach you how to hold the squeegee, obviously you can't just practice piece your way through holding a squeegee, or at least you shouldn't. The Wrap Institute honestly is a huge resource to the wrap industry on how to wrap. So you got to put in the time, though. That's just like anything. You're only going to get out what you put in. So
Yeah.
you're going to need to get your subscription. Honestly, it's super cheap for the value it brings. And watch your videos, go to apply, mess it up.
And the Wrap Institute is just a website. Think of YouTube for rappers.
Mhm.
So the rapinstitute.com.
Yeah.
Justin Pate runs that with his team, and he's a great friend of ours. So definitely check those videos out. That's what you watched.
Yeah.
If you watched our first episode of how our story started, when we had to rewrap a car 3 times in a row, it was like, okay, what did we fail? Watch this video a million
Mhm.
times, try it again, watch the video, try it again. So if you don't have an in-person mentor, that would be your best bet to do it
Yeah.
virtually. And if you could walk into a shop, I think it's a little tit for tat here. It's hard to walk into a shop and just say, I really want to wrap, hire me.
Right.
It's almost better if you say, I'll do anything to get in the door. I'll clean the cars. I'll watch. I'll learn behind you. That would probably be a better approach as like a tiny pro tip if you're listening
Yeah.
to this and you're trying to get into the industry, because that's a lot of time for someone to teach you how to wrap. And most people say that because they're about to leave out the door and, go do their own shop or whatever, which is fine. But it's hard to invest that much in someone for that to then happen.
Yeah.
So
And it takes a ton of time to
yeah,
train
this isn't something
somebody.
you learn in
Yeah.
a couple weeks. It actually does not matter how much I prepare new hires for that. Almost always they give me feedback that I thought I was going to pick this up quicker.
Hmm.
And I try to compare it to like welding and the trades and electric and HVAC. And I'm like, those take years of apprenticeship
Yep.
before you're mastered at it. And this is no different. So it takes years to get your skill up
Yeah.
for sure. And the best people in the industry are the ones that have been doing it 20 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a really good one on perfect your product. And I also would like to say, I think, in my own opinion, about 90% of the reason why installers do a crummy job is because they either booked too much in
Hmm.
1 week and their time is short. So being able to manage your calendar and effectively look at a job and say, this is going to take me 12 hours and let me add 4 for the I didn't realize that was going to happen moments.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think if we've ever done a vehicle and it has gone exactly according to plan. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone ever does.
Almost never.
Yeah,
So,
almost never. So a clip breaks or your print is wrong or you take 3 hours trying to get the mirror off when you thought it was only going to take 20 or you ripped the panel and now you need to reprint. So I always would account for a buffer time of something to go over and be wrong. But I think that's the biggest thing. I think people rush.
yeah.
And wraps are really hard to rush. And I also think it's a really hard thing to do for like 36 straight hours, coming from experience
Yeah.
of us doing it that long at times. It's mentally exhausting. And if you don't give yourself a break and sleep on it, it just gets worse and worse, and your mistakes just keep going up and up.
And it's tough because it's one thing to make a wrap look good as it walks out the door, but a wrap, is supposed to last. So what does it look like 30 days, 90 days, 3 years, 5 years from then?
Yeah.
So that's the hardest part of wrapping in a good quality manner, because there's definitely things that you can just sweep under the rug or corners you can cut, things you can skip and still hand a good looking product to the customer. But then 2 months later, you're getting the calls because now it's peeling and bubbling and all of that. So that's
and
also,
then that makes you even more time restrained because you have to
yeah.
squeeze in those fixes
Mhm.
on top of those income producing jobs.
Yeah.
And we've been there where,
Or
I
you
think
can
we've had
ignore-
8 to 10 fixes in a row before where we're just drowning in fixes.
Mhm.
So,
Or you can ignore the phone calls, get the 1-star reviews, and hanging.
you could.
Yeah, throw in the towel and go work for your competition. So
But yeah, that would be worst case scenario,
Yeah.
but you could do that. So cool. So coming up on our third and final step of how to get out of the vicious cycle of just feeling like your business is running you over, especially in the wrap world, would be to set crystal clear expectations with your client. And I would say this could potentially be harder than learning how to
Yeah.
wrap itself.
you mean it's not just everything that goes wrong, blame the customer?
Yeah. So what this means more specifically in our shop is taking the time with the customer if it's a unique project, meaning not just a regular SUV, truck, sedan.
Right.
Like food trucks are a good example of this. More complex vehicles where they have custom stuff added. I would say a car with a lot of aftermarket pieces. Those things where it's not all stock factory beautiful. Taking the time with that client to walk around the vehicle and document, is this getting wrapped? Is this getting wrapped? You're going to have a seam here. I don't know how to make this flow in. Then you might need to get this one piece painted because it's not going to look pretty if it gets wrapped. That's a rough plastic where we're not going to wrap that. So the customer has no idea, but if you take those few minutes beforehand to say, as the expert, this is what we're going to do and this is what we can't do, they receive that so much better versus when they pick up and they're like, why wasn't this covered? And this looks horrible. And why is there a seam here? And you didn't tell me this. And I can tell you that from experience. Yeah. We have redone a lot of jobs where I realized, man, if I just would have had a 10-minute conversation with them, we would not be in this position at all. So it's really about being proactive instead of reactive. And that goes all the way down to the art proofs. So we work with designers all the time. And this just happened today in our shop where the designer didn't catch some plastic trim pieces that were
Mhm.
not going to be wrapped, but the design clearly showed those were getting wrapped.
Yep.
So we literally had that designer update the design and sent it right back to the client for approval, because I would rather that client kind of argue me now
Yep.
in before we even print the wrap and be upset, and I can talk them through and say this is why and save it, versus we print the whole wrap, we install the whole thing, customer picks up and then just shows me their proof and goes, this doesn't match, and they're 100% right.
Yeah.
It doesn't match. And why would they have known otherwise?
And I think to add to that expectation standpoint, because if we're talking to rappers out there that have been doing it for years, it's like, yeah, duh, it doesn't stick to plastics. Like that's a no brainer. But to share some statistics and kind of goes along with what we've been talking about, our like work is 80% of our work is either repeat or referral customers. But of that, 20% that's new business. I would say close to 50% of our new inbound customers are first time wrap customers. So they don't have an expectation. Like you're just letting their mind go wild of what is going to get wrapped or what isn't going to get wrapped.
And sometimes they go crazy and kind of like go on Google and they're like, well, this
Yeah.
one shop in this one city in this one state wrapped it this way. Why
Yeah.
can't you? And it's like,
this AI
you've
generated
already
image shows.
But once that starts happening where they're pulling these random photos off Google, you've kind of already failed because they're not viewing you as the expert anymore.
Yep.
Now they think, oh, I know more than you. You have to position yourself as the expert.
Exactly.
And immediately say, we're not going to wrap this because in the past it has failed and it's going to peel off and XYZ. And we always have customers where sometimes they're like, can we risk it? And it's like, that's fine, but I'm going to put that in writing on your proof of no warranty on this piece.
Yep.
And that's the other thing. It's really easy, especially with today's technology, to document in writing what you are telling the customer. So what we do is super simple. We just got an iPad. Our front desk person has an iPad, and iPads are pretty inexpensive now. You find one on Facebook Marketplace, I'm sure, for pretty cheap, and take pictures of all four sides of the vehicle and circle any concerns that you have in a certain color. And then I will email that to the client and just say, hey, I just wanted you to review this. These are some concerns I have on your vehicle. If that customer isn't in person with me, if they're in person, I typically will do it, with them just pointing, and then I'll go back and do the document after and still have it in writing, because that has kind of come back as well, where it's hard to be like, no, I told you so. Don't you remember I said that? Where it's always easy to say like, I'm sorry. Like I tried to tell you and I did put it in this document right here and I did send it to you. And that gives you a little bit more ground to stand on. And usually, I'm trying to think if I've ever had a customer come back when I've put it in writing. I don't think they've ever said
I
anything
don't think so.
when it goes that far. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Sometimes I just circle areas and then I'll put on the top of the photo, like circled equals problem area, no warranty.
Yeah. And to that light, what you do very good at is live by the under promise and over deliver mentality. So on that, you almost will go overboard of like concern, keep your hopes low.
And then we're able to wrap it awesome. And they're like, whoa, that was better than I expected.
Exactly.
And that's always better.
And that to that point is a recency bias. This is a customer of within the past couple months, but Jeep Wrangler came in for a commercial wrap, bright red. So,
and the design was like white and baby blue and green.
It was like white, blue, orange, green on a bright red painted, like hinges, all of everything was red.
Yeah, everything was paint match.
And you did a very good job at like screaming from the rooftop of like, red is going to show.
I probably annoyed her.
Yeah, it is going to scream through everywhere.
Yeah.
And after you said it like 4 times, it's one of those like, if after you've clearly heard this and you still want to pay me, we will do the job and I will sleep well. And then she came and picked up and
she's ecstatic.
Yeah.
I was like, this is way less red
exactly.
than what I thought was going to show.
Yeah.
So we even said we couldn't wrap the hinges and we were able to still wrap them. And she was thrilled about that. So always, I'm going to say it backwards. Under promise,
over deliver.
Under promise, over deliver. Yeah, that does you well every time. So definitely do that. And so that's really more on those custom designed and printed jobs. You can also do this on your color changes as well.
Mhm.
So one of the things is if you offer chrome deletes, I literally have my front desk person take photos of all four sides of the vehicle, and she just using that iPad feature just highlights what we are
Mhm.
deleting. It also helps our install team not have to ask a million questions and call the customer and, oh, I thought I paid for this and you didn't do this. No, you actually weren't quoted for that. Like you can't just send an invoice that just says Chrome delete. And
Yeah.
and trust us, we've received a lot of those when people try to price match with us, where I'm like, they literally put Chrome delete, $1,000. I have no idea. Does that mean all the Chrome? Is it just a piece?
Right.
And in those documents, I also have my front desk person notate things that cannot be deleted. So, like
Mhm.
our shop does not wrap emblems. We
Right.
just recommend you purchase new emblems and we'll swap them out for you. So she will circle typically in a different color and say, we can't wrap these.
Mhm.
And that has a we used to get yelled at all the time for that of like,
Mhm.
why aren't my emblems wrapped? So you can even be clear on things that don't really even go through a designer just to make sure everyone's on the same page. You can even do it with racing stripes. If you don't want to pay a designer to do those stripes, you can honestly mock up on an iPad on the vehicle. Um,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of
Set
other things, little partial hood wraps,
Yeah, I mean,
anything you can kind of like show
just
is
in
always helpful.
just in general, I think the mentality of especially every first time interaction with a customer. Obviously, you don't need to do this on, you know, Jimmy's 14th plumbing van. Like
Well, you'll
he
start to learn Jimmy.
yeah,
And no,
Jimmy
Jimmy doesn't care that he knows there's rust on the bottom left and
exactly.
he's fine with it.
Yeah,
So you'll
Jimmy
learn Jimmy.
understands. But if that's
Yeah.
your first time customer, setting that expectation up front is huge, almost to the point of like if the customer's weird about it, doesn't want to like have that conversation and doesn't really respect you as the professional and the authority that you are in the space, not a customer you want.
Yeah.
Not all customers are
But
good
I will
customers.
say this does not mean that every single person that wants a quote from you, you tell them you have to come to my shop and have an in-person consultation.
I think
Just
that's fair.
ask them to text photos of
Yeah.
all four sides and you can just mock up those photos and immediately send it back to them.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, quotes in your inbox, these are my concerns,
Mhm.
or attach, like we attach our document to the quote and it'll say like coverage is shown in the attachment
Yeah.
so that there is no black or white. And a lot of times we miss things where the customer's like, oh, I actually didn't want that or add this
Mhm.
on. And that document really helps clarify that.
I would say
So,
unless it's a food truck, then you better pull into my lot and we're going to walk around it with you.
yeah. Yeah.
So any of the wrap shops that wrap food trucks,
Yep.
they know exactly what we're talking about there.
And also with those proofs, make sure, especially for the designers out there, that you are using the correct vehicle template. So there's nothing more frustrating than when you have an entire thing designed, approved, printed, and then the vehicle comes in and it is not the right vehicle. I would say the biggest place this gets you is trucks, because
Mhm.
they have the different cab
Yeah,
sizes, the different bed
trucks and
sizes.
vans.
And same thing there. Just make sure you're asking clients for those photos of all four sides of their vehicle. Don't let them argue you on it.
Mhm.
That is a big thing. They'll try to say, well, you can just Google it. And I always say, this is how we confirm that your prints are going to be accurate on your vehicle.
Yep.
Because we need to see the different trim package and what you have and assess correctly. Because think, what if you have chrome bumpers, chrome door
Mhm.
handles? Those are things we address right away of, yes, this will or will not be wrapped. So food for thought for the designers that are out there.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else for, setting those super clear expectations?
Just as do it. I mean, it's yeah, just
It's time
it's
consuming,
time
but
consuming. It
you
feels
want to take the 20
redundant.
minutes
You
before
you got to do
versus
it.
the thousands of dollars later
Mhm.
to redo it. And I would also like to add, unrelated to this episode, but pro tip, that um, just giving the customer a refund is almost never the answer.
Right.
They're still leaving mad. They're still leaving you as a customer. So you might as well fix it.
Yeah.
So just like to add that in there. But that's really it. That's our 3 biggest tips. If you're in a rut right now and feel like your wrap shop is just pushing you all over the place, you have to start with perfecting your product.
Mhm.
And to do that, you have to assess yourself and then set those crystal clear expectations and start with that. And then you can start working on those back end things that are going to make your life easier.
Yeah.
So, anything you want to add to close this out?
I don't think so. Everything starts with the product and setting that clear expectation up front, kind of getting your consistency standard down. That's step one to building a good high quality shop.
Yep. And as soon as you have that high quality product, the word will spread almost
Oh, yeah.
scarily fast
Yeah.
about you.
And like I said, I mean, I kind of shared a stat there in the beginning, but we're 8 years in and 80% of our business is repeat and referral. You don't get that from putting out bad work.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that wraps up our second episode here. If you have any questions that you want us to address, please head over to wrapops.com. Ask us anything that you can think of, and we might just talk about it in our next podcast. And please send this to anyone in the industry that you think this would benefit, someone that you think like they have that potential. They just need an extra nudge. We would love to help them out. And we're looking forward to some more value packed episodes coming up in the future.
We'll keep it coming.
Yeah. Thank you guys.